My channel focuses on professional development, personal development, and a little bit more about, as you notice here, personal finance in New York City and even things to do for cheap. I wanted to provide these money saving tips that I mentioned that I was going to go over in my debt-free journey. So this way you can also save money and you can also pay all your debt off. And especially in New York City, I feel like everyone has always thought that it's so expensive. So this is just kind of like a window into my life on exactly how I save money. Without further ado, I'm going to go over the money saving tips that you can do today. So just to keep in mind, I'm gonna have a lot of general tips in the very beginning, and these general tips are gonna be good for like no matter where you are. And then I'm also towards the end of the video, I'll teach you how you can save money in New York City. So first off, I always had in mind for like what I was paying for. I always made sure I asked me 3 questions. These 3 questions, by the way, are: do I need it? Do I like it? And will I use it for a long time? If I don't have a yes for all of them, I don't even consider it. There's not a single time when I actually just buy something and not used it. If I did, I gave it away for a good cause, like either I donated it or maybe a friend wanted it, so something like that. But in general, those 3 need to be satisfied. So a lot of people in New York City, they don't actually cook food. They buy food, which for a while I actually did that too. But you need to really cook food to really save money in New York City. And even so, the groceries, if you were to compare it to maybe somewhere a lot cheaper, it's gonna be a big difference. But for me, I was cheap and I didn't even go for the organic stuff. I always went by the unit price. You do not go by the price, you go by the unit price. Actually, my friend taught me this back in college. It's a little sticker tag on the left side of the actual price that tells you what's the price per unit. So for example, if there was like a 16-ounce can and it costs 9 cents per ounce, it's gonna cost a lot cheaper than the 16-ounce can that is 15 cents per ounce. So I pay attention to that over the actual total sticker price. If you look at the price per ounce, it's a lot easier to tell, because then you may be skewed by the cheaper price but actually has less than you would have had for the bigger one that has more for your money. So that is something that you should keep in mind. In general, this is actually a big tip that I took, and thankfully I still use it to this day. So that's one thing. The other thing is that I don't buy clothes. Like, the clothes that I wear were literally back from high school, maybe middle school. My friends are so pissed at me for this, really. They're just like, how the hell do you handle wearing middle school and high school clothing? I'm wearing something that I bought this year, but that's because I paid off my loans already. But back then, I really skimped out on my clothes. And because I did DECA back in high school, I had business clothes already. And not to mention, in like college, I did get some business casual clothing for internships. I wore the same thing. I literally did not buy clothes. Maybe Black Friday I would buy something, but I literally did not buy anything. And they're also good for when I go for work. So thankfully, I did not have to wear business professional with the suit every day to work. I just wore business casual. Simple as that. When it comes to actually saving money, there's a lot of things you can do. So first, consider, do you really need all those clothes that you're getting? And the better question for what I actually did was, again, the third one, will I wear it for a long time? If you think about that, this also means no Forever 21, no H&M clothing, because they're not gonna last a long time. You're paying like for a short-term gain, but you're really gonna lose out on the long-term gain. So what you have to do is think about quality. You don't have to go for anything like Louis Vuitton or anything like that. You can go for something as simple as, oh, I'm just gonna go for a Uniqlo blouse. I'm gonna be wearing it for work, and I'm gonna be wearing it for home, or I'm gonna wear it for when I go out. So all those things, what I do is I think about what are the main purposes and can I use it in different occasions. So that way I don't need to buy a specific thing for this occasion or a specific thing for that occasion. So if you look at my closet, it's actually gonna be like 90% business casual with a few like this, which is fun for summer. So I created a budget, and that was a really good way to kind of have a sense of how much I was spending. So gas and hot water is typically covered for in New York City. So really I had to pay for the electricity and for the internet. So from that, it was just mostly, I didn't have that many utilities to pay for. The internet, I also knew, because I'm gonna work from home a lot, it had to be decent, but it didn't expect it to be like Verizon Fios, like 1 gigabit connection. But for me, I just needed what I needed because it's just myself. So when I created the budget, what I made sure to do was I put down my financial goals, and I made sure that when I did direct deposit for my job, to separate 50% to one bank account and 50% to another bank account. The reason why I did this is so I kind of segmented what I wanted to do with each bank account. One is Bank of America, one is JP Morgan. So my Bank of America was meant for any bills, rent, or housing, anything like that, my necessities basically. My JP Morgan was anything I want to spend on. So in this case, it was mostly like food or maybe expenses. So something like that. So what I did was I had it segmented so that way it's a lot easier for me to track and make sure I put aside, especially when I calculated my paycheck. It worked out perfectly with my budget goals. This was also the time when I was also trying to figure out what I needed to do in New York City. I would try to, do the touristy stuff. Like, I've been to New York City as like a New Yorker, but I still wanted to go out to those restaurants or like be able to go hang out with friends. And here's one thing I did to save a lot of money. And this is, I know a lot of people have issues with this. They can't do this. They don't know how to do this. I don't drink alcohol. New York City drinks are like maybe $15 for a cocktail, maybe 20. Even beer is kind of expensive, like maybe $8 to $10. Honestly, like I don't pay attention to the beer or wine menu. So we don't get alcohol at all. Whenever we go out for food, it's just a meal and we're done. We don't even have drinks, we just get water. There's so many things you can think about on how to save money, but a lot of people, when they come to New York, they want to hang out with friends and they probably want to go for drinks or anything like that. I don't get drinks. And then maybe the occasional bubble tea. Okay, maybe a lot of bubble tea, but it's a lot better than alcohol. Like $15 for a cocktail as opposed to a $5 bubble tea, like I don't drink that much, and I also don't drink bubble tea that much, especially because where I lived in Upper East Side, it was actually pretty hard to get bubble tea. I would have to actually take the subway. I work from home a lot, so typically I would go to the office on a Wednesday or Friday because Wednesday there's free food, so another reason why I'm saving money. And then Friday, there's free bagels. So you can see a trend. I'm going there for their free food. And then occasionally we would also have events. And eventually I also became the office champion. So what the office champion does is that we organize events for the business group. So this also means I deal with catering. I deal with the good food, and if there's leftover food, I doggy bag it. I know this is like so Asian in me, but you gotta do what you gotta do when you have no money and you have to pay off your student loans. Is that I literally would doggy bag catering food from a party because there's so much left over, and I took it home. Like the holiday party we went to in like December 2018, there was platters of food left untouched. I took the platters home. It was literally food for a week. So you can see how there's probably gonna be a lot of things that you're just gonna be like, I don't really want to do that. Should I do that? But for me, I did it because I want to pay off $50,000 in a year. There's a lot of things you can do. The other thing you can do is you just don't go out that often. Like I know in New York, it's like irresistible, but there's also a lot of free things you can do. What I actually like to do is I go to the parks, I walk with my boyfriend, and my boyfriend and I, we love to walk. It's actually one of our favorite things to do in New York City is walking. If you just like window shop and just kind of explore it a little. So you can save a lot of money from not paying for subway or buses. I've literally walked like over 50 blocks from just walking for the entire day, maybe even more than that. And that's like something so cheap to do. You don't need to buy anything. Don't go to the stores and buy anything. You're completely defeating the purpose of this. You can go to Central Park, you can walk there. You can sit there, have a picnic where you're buying your own groceries, you're making your own food. That kind of thing is so romantic, but also so cheap, or even like priceless. The other thing you should do is get a high yield savings account. I know at this time the interest rates are going down, but it's still gonna be a lot higher than if you have like 0.0001% interest at your like Bank of America savings or something like that. So what I did was I actually went with the American Express National Bank, and I went with the American Express high yield savings account. I know there's other ones out there, so just make sure to look out for them. So here's some ways that you can save money in New York City. So number one, here's a huge hack that I use a lot, and honestly I'm a little bit I'm a little bit disappointed in myself because it's like so cheap, because I'm trying to save $275 with the Metro card. So to those people who don't really know, you can actually transfer for free on the metro system in New York City. And what this means is that when you go from bus to subway, subway to bus, it is free. Subway to subway is free as long as you don't leave the subway station. So that's the little caveat. And then bus to bus is also free. A little hack I have to make a round trip the cost of a one-way. What this means is that I would literally take the subway to the location I need to go to, and then I take the bus back. This means I need to start from the very beginning, 2.5 hours from the moment I swipe my Metro card into the subway or in the bus. And then the next trip on the way back, I take the other mode of transportation. What this means is that I only get the price of one trip for the entire time. This only means that it really works for short-term trips. So if you, for example, were going to Chinatown to pick up groceries, or maybe you need to go to the gym somewhere else, or maybe you just want to go for coffee with a friend, you could use this hack to only pay for one trip. And again, this is super cheap, but this is one way that I really actually abused the hell out of it to save $2.75 to instead of pay for $5.50. So I know that's very stingy, but you know what? If you're trying to make ends meet, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. If you're thinking of considering maybe going to a expensive gym like Equinox, think again. There's actually a lot of very cheap gyms out there, and in some ways you can actually utilize a New York City parks membership, and I actually use this to go to the pool a lot. If you're a youth between the ages of 18 to 24, your annual membership is $24. That's literally $2 a month. Only if you're an adult older than 25, then it's $125. So it's still $10 a month, but it's still cheaper than any other gym. Even the cheapest one like Planet Fitness or Blink, it's still cheaper than that, and access to all of the parks, all of the gyms, and all of the facilities that the New York City Parks has. This doesn't necessarily mean like Central Park, don't think about that. So you can actually go to the New York City Parks membership and go to the public pool. So I actually have one 20-minute walk away from here, and it's so easy because like they have the schedule online, and then I would actually go take my boyfriend to teach him how to swim because he doesn't know how to swim. He's a New Yorker, you know what? So he's just giving me a dead look right now. If you're the type that doesn't want to work out at home, or maybe go pay for an expensive gym, consider New York City Parks because there's so many resources out there. You can literally go to like soccer fields or pools, or even have some classes. Like they have basketball games, and they have like yoga classes. Like you just need to make sure that you find the closest location to you and then follow their class schedule. It's a public facility, so you get a lot of things for a lot cheaper because it's government funded. The other thing I want to note is that if you're going to be in New York City, chances are you're going to be exploring New York City, correct? So make sure to get the culture pass, and you can get the culture pass for free if you get a library card. So if you go to like the Brooklyn libraries or the Manhattan library or the Queens library, all those libraries, they have memberships with the culture associations around New York City. So you actually get discounted or free passes all across all the cool facilities out there. So think about it. If you get a free library card, you get a culture pass. With this completely free culture pass, you can get maybe 5 tickets to go to the Brooklyn Botanical Garden for free. 5 annually. So that's actually like, if you think about the student cost, it's like about $50 for 5 tickets. The last thing I want to mention is affordable housing. I mentioned this before in my debt-free journey, but it significantly helped me with how to save money in the escalating prices of New York City. So what affordable housing is, so in New York City, there's like about 2 types I like to kind of categorize it. One is the low income government housing, and that's the one where you need to actually certify your pay every month, and you live in government housing where it's like super dirt cheap, but they even pay for utilities. However, on the other hand, which is what I actually do, this is the rooftop of my affordable housing, is that New York City Housing Department actually gives tax breaks to a lot of developers and landlords that want to take part in this. What this means is that 30% of their building, that needs to be affordable housing. And when you're in affordable housing, your prices are a little bit cheaper. So like for example, in my building, the typical cost of a 1-bedroom apartment, which is actually all of the apartments in my building, it's $2,800. For me, it's actually $2,250. Not to mention mine is rent stabilized because it's affordable housing. And when it's rent stabilized, it means that while their prices go up, mine are going the same. And actually there's gonna be like a 1 to 2% inflation rate, but it's still not that much compared to like 10% raise, which you've seen in like other places out there. So make sure you go look into affordable housing. The link is down below. I'm actually gonna have a video on explaining exactly how I got affordable housing, and this could really be helpful for you because this way you can actually go for affordable housing, stay there for a very long time, get the great prices out there because the prices stay the same. So for me, I have $2,250 for my 1-bedroom apartment, and I actually split it with my boyfriend, so my rent is really cheap. It's actually a decent sized apartment too because I'm in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, so this means that I get the space instead of having like the $22.50 cost of a Manhattan apartment. So that's another tip, is to make sure look at your other boroughs. So don't be so alarmed if you're like, oh my god, but I want to be in Manhattan. Like maybe your first year, or maybe even like the first couple months, you may want to live in Manhattan, but then after that you're probably going to want to go scale it down a little bit and go to Brooklyn or Queens. You can get more space for your money, and this is where affordable housing is really great, because you can get even cheaper prices and more rent stabilized prices for the same space that you're looking for in Brooklyn and Queens. So I'm also going to be doing a video after quarantine is all over. We're still in quarantine here, stay at home order until like beginning of July, and right now it's June. So when I have that time to really go out there and I feel safe enough, that I'm going to film a couple of ways of how I actually go into New York City to have fun for free. So my channel focuses on professional development, personal development, and a little bit more about, as you notice here, personal finance in New York City, and even things to do for cheap. Cue in Sora. During this filming, I had Sora up on the rooftop, and we were walking Sora. Oh my god! Look at that. We have a harness on, we have a little leash on. So I'm gonna cut into some B-roll of us walking Sora, so this way you can enjoy the life of being a crazy cat lady while you pay off your student loans. Yeah! Sora to you! Yeah! You look so terrified. We are walking Sora. Go! Yes. Yes, my precious. Go.